What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 7 of my weekly vinyl review. My name is LESTER Pywell, and this is just another opportunity for me to use up some of my words and tell you about the music that I've collected on vinyl over the years. And today we're not holding back. We're going to be looking at Enter the WU-TANG, 36 chambers, and that's released on the 9th of November 1993 on Loud Records and RCA Records. This is of course the first full-length album by the legendary group. It is quite a feat to remember all the members of the full 10-member clan, but the original members from this album are RZA, Geza, Master Killer, Ghostface Killer, Method Man, U-God, Raekwon the Chef, and of course Old Dirty Bastard. And of course it's very easy to mention, or obvious to mention rather, that this album was integral in changing the whole course of hip-hop, and of course was a massive influence on very big artists and groups that went on to establish the 90s. Groups like Mobb Deep, Nas, and Biggie, to name a few. One could go on forever about this album and the influences and all the various tracks, but what I'd like to do is to focus on one of my favorite tracks and what it meant on the album, and then also to focus on the HBO special featuring Wu-Tang called American Saga. Now, not to go too deep into the series, but the reason why I bring this up is American Saga does an incredibly good job of showcasing some of the very important parts of history of the Wu-Tang Clan and how they came about and what they went on to do. It was in season 2, episode 7, where episode called Airwaves, where they actually showcased the recording of the track Seventh Chamber. And Seventh Chamber is easily one of my favorite tracks from back in that time because, quite simply, it just encompasses, first and foremost, RZA's original raw sound, that gritty, soulful, dark, edgy, no holds barred sound that he had created on very, very basic equipment and things that was available to him back in those days. The series, as I mentioned, showcases that quite nicely, and if you listen to the track on the record, you'll notice that there's an incredibly long intro and quite like aggressive, quite wild, quite raw, and in short it's a recording of basically some of the crew members coming back to this where they were meeting to come and record one day, and just like talking about how one guy had been shot, etc. And it just highlights what these guys were going through in real life in those days. You know, they were dealing drugs, they were like selling weed on the street corners to get by, having to do petty crimes and things just to get by. And it was in this time that they were able to get together and actually record this album and change their lives and change again the course of hip hop. And for me, this episode and Seventh Chamber and the whole sort of day around recording this track literally paves the way for Wu-Tang Clan. I do remember reading some guy writing about, the fact that this intro was used on this track was potentially a mistake, and it was way too long, and it was quite like odd and disturbing. It's when you put the track on, you have to almost get through this. I think it's about a minute long of just these guys talking and this drama, if you will. And I couldn't disagree with this guy more, because as much as it is disturbing, it does. And RZA does this throughout the album. He has many examples where he uses a lot of sampling, but there are moments whereby he'll change a tape in the background. You hear that happening, and he was unable to actually cut that out, so it gets included in the recording. But again, it paints the picture and the sound and gives you that feeling, the lo-fi, the genius behind it all. It just adds to all of that. And so does these samples and these intros and recorded bits. And coming back to American Saga, what they do quite well, and if I've got this right, is that they almost recreate that process of them arriving at the studio. It was this tiny little recording booth that could hardly house one of them at a time, and of course now there are 8 of them, 9 of them in the studio, whatever the case may be. And then of course the actual recording booth where they all kind of jammed in. And basically American Saga highlights this and showcases this quite well, and the guys are brilliant actors, that are being Wu-Tang Clan in the scene. But one for one, you see them, and this is exactly what had happened. They were writing their lyrics off the fly on the back of cereal boxes, and then the one would go in and record his part, and I think it was Method Man was watching, I don't know, it doesn't even matter, Inspector Deck, and busy writing his thing, and he's like, to start again, because Inspector Deck had done such a good job, and they were just feeding off each other. And I think that is a massive part of this. You had 8 absolute geniuses coming together. I don't want to call it a fluke, but just by just massive fortune, I suppose, and feeding off each other. And just at the end of the day, this song also represents the creative process that Wu-Tang Clan go through, as well as like I mentioned, the diverse talents all coming together with this cohesive sound. You can't say enough about that, and I think that pretty much ties it up. So I'm going to put a link below here. If you enjoy what you saw here today, please like, subscribe, share. Remember to go check out the album, inspire yourself.